So basically, it's about the secondary market. Stupid. Look, Wizards of the Coast, everybody thinks that they don't care about the secondary market and everything else like that. Wrong. 5 years after Magic the Gathering come out, January of 1999, they started their own magazine to start printing prices based on the secondary market. Before then, we had Inquest and Scrye were the two magazines. And quite frankly, you had to kind of look at both of those because either one of them, one was high, one was a little low, and you had to go somewhere in between. And this is what a lot of the stores in the day used to price the cards, besides popularity and everything. Well, what's interesting is, Wizards had said, "Oh no, we don't want to touch the secondary market." Well, they finally started to in their own official publication. And this is where I keep hearing people go, they don't care about the secondary market nowadays. They very much do. And this was acknowledged 20 years ago. It just seems to have been forgotten somewhere along the line. So they even advertised a big old full-page ad that they were going to start doing this. It says, check out the Duelist Price Index coming in next month's issue. Complete Magic card price list, tradability ratings, and a regular column on the financial aspects of playing Magic. All of this in one magazine, along with the most in-depth Magic strategy. Complete standard player's guide with up-to-date rulings and errata. Inside information about the game you love and unparalleled coverage of the trading card game industry. So, the Duelist Price Index starts to come along, and they talk about it in this issue, and they end up saying that on the following pages, we're going to find the first installment of the Duelist Price Index, or referred to as the DPI. The Secondary Market Price Guide. There was a time when Wizards of the Coast had said they would never be a Magic the Gathering price guide within the covers of its official magazine. But now it's there. How did this happen? And they said, well, because the readers wanted it. So, the Wizards of the Coast CEO, Peter Atkinson at the time, had this to say. When we originally decided not to make a price guide, the Magic secondary market was young and growing. This is true. We're talking about the first 5 years here, folks. It hadn't been established as a legitimate business on its own merits yet, and we did not want to be seen as attempting to manipulate it. It has been several years since there's been any uncertainty about the market. Basically referring back to, when the reserve list went in place and some of the problems that happened around Fallen Empires that almost destroyed Magic at the time. Now it makes sense for the cards to be listed in the magazine, an official Wizards of the Coast Magic guide. Now think about this. Everybody goes that the secondary market is evil. Oh my gosh, Wizards doesn't care about the secondary market. Wrong. 5 years afterwards, they cared about the secondary market the whole time, but they finally decided to start printing in regards to it. They were taking a look at the secondary market because it really did matter to them. You have to remember that when this game came out, it was marketed as a collectible trading card game. Even something like Portal, and we're talking about Second Age here, said on the back of its box, in this strategy game, you play with decks of illustrated cards instead of a board. These collectible cards, represent magical spells and fantastic creatures. Okay? The first starter decks and the booster pack boxes and everything like that said on them, collectible trading card game. They started to get a little bit away from that wording around 4th edition or Ice Age, but no, it was still there. So we hear all these things about, it's not a collectible card game. Bleh. What about all the evil people that are buying boxes or cards and sitting on them? Oh my gosh, people are manipulating the secondary market. Bleh. Well, guess what? It's designed that way. Wizards of the Coast understood that they needed the secondary market to make Magic what it is now, 25 years later. Okay? They talked to 40 shops to get their price index for what's low and high and everything like this. And they talked all across the U.S. You know, they have all the different regions. And, of course, New Mexico even had a few places that came up on the list. Now, what's funny about this is actually, I think almost every one of these shops on the list, though, is gone nowadays because there was a huge crash in the Magic economy again around 2003, 2004, and then again in 2008. So it wasn't necessarily sustainable because people quit playing for a while and they couldn't get the new players in. But I think it's funny that they have all these, you know, places on here. You have New Mexico, of all places. I mean, a state with only 2 million people in it. And they have a little town called Alamogordo, sitting right next to the White Sands Missile Range and everything else like that, that they use for the price index. No places in Florida. I guess, you know, nobody in Florida actually knew anything about financing, you know. Maybe they're all too busy working at Taco Bell at the time, you know. But there is one smart kid down there in Florida that seems to have understood what's going on nowadays. So Alpha Investments does know. But he's not on the price guide. None of the stores are either. So, but it's still very, very fascinating with all this. And you see some interesting prices for back in the day for cards and where they landed on things. And looking at these old price guides, the thing that's the most mind-blowing is the beta cards were worth more than the alpha cards. There was such a small printing on the alpha, but it was still worth less. And even at that time, nobody wanted the alpha cards because the corners were more rounded. They were considered marked cards and you couldn't play them in the tournaments. So the beta cards were worth more. Somewhere in the last 5 years, this has flipped. So now your alpha cards are worth more because people realize, oh, hey, the collectors go, these are more rare. And with the advent of the card sleeves and everything finally becoming more normalized, you know, you can play with those and they're not marked cards anymore. The only marked cards we have nowadays is anything printed in the last 3 years by Wizards because it comes out of the package bent. You can't even keep them from not curling. So, you know, I don't know what happened there. Maybe they were trying to join the Winter Olympics team this year for all I know. But here it is, folks. Wizards does care about the secondary market. Or at least they did. I think something changed in the last few years. You know, I don't know what happened with Hasbro's when they bought the company. And Hasbro's had the company for a while, and they did shut down the Duelist magazine. But I think the internet killed off a lot of these price guys too, because Inquest, you know, they lasted for a bit longer, but they only made it to about 2008, 2009. And then really, that's when all the MTG finance sites had really kicked up. And there was a few before then, but, you know, that's when we got our TCG Player, our Star City Games, our MTG Goldfish. They're really the places to go to for information. But there's no real good historical records of the timelines. It's not like the stock market where you can track it all the way back, or the NASDAQ, you know. They have long histories. About the best we typically have for the old cards is about 2010. So that's not very long for a game like this that's been around for 25 years. And something happened still even in that time where the legacy cards lost value until recently. You know, the last 3 or 4 years, a lot more people have started buying again. And I think it's some of us collectors, because if there's 20 million players, but the prices are spiking on these old cards, it's because of someone like me. You see, we read the old magazines back in the day, you know, and we see a card now like Lord of Tressorhorn that is going for $1 or $2, and we're like, that was a $15 or $20 card. Oh my gosh, I'm going to buy them up. Or we see the same thing happen with Legends or the Dark. And we have our disposable income now because, you know, we have families and we have houses, and for some of us, the kids have moved out. And so we want to do something again, you know, so some of us have picked this back up. So, yeah, there is the market and secondary market has been very strong for Magic along the whole time. It's had some weaknesses along the lines, and some things have changed, but it's not always the MTG finance people that have made this thing evil, you know. And don't believe Wizards of the Coast when they say, oh no, we don't care about the secondary market. No, they care. Okay, they really do. If they rock the boat too much with the secondary market, it can make their whole game implode. So, if you have any interesting thoughts on the secondary market, want to know more about some of the pricing back in the day, what were the hottest cards, you know, when we were playing, yeah, we can go over some of that stuff, because I think we have enough to go over, because some of us idiots actually kept this stuff. I don't know. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you next time. Like, alpha set sold out in 6 weeks. Nobody realizes that nowadays. Or the fact that the alpha and beta sets, 20% of them were sold in a silly little town in the Southwest called Albuquerque.